On the northern shore of Lake Ontario, near the U.S. border, lies Canada's largest city. Toronto is the capital of the province of Ontario and is a major economic and cultural centre for the country. Founded as York by the British in the late 1700s, Toronto is now a proudly Canadian city, and nearly 6 million people call the Greater Toronto Area home. The megacity attracts people from all over the world, and neighborhoods such as Chinatown, Greektown, and Little Italy are just some examples of Toronto's diversity. Nearly everywhere you go, you can catch a glimpse of the city's iconic CN Tower, one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. Architecture meets art in the Art Gallery of Ontario, designed by the groundbreaking Toronto-born architect Frank Gehry, who used to visit the original gallery as a child. No less impressive, but from a different era altogether, is the elegant hilltop castle, Castle Loma. It was dreamt up a century ago by the ambitious Sir Henry Pellet, whose family motto was, "Foremost if I can." This motto perfectly reflects the spirit of the Torontonians in what is nicknamed the city that works. The entrepreneurial Canadians also know how to relax. Take a stroll in one of Toronto's many green spaces, such as the Edward Gardens and High Park. Families, couples, and students share the botanical displays with the curious chipmunks. Near the waterfront, Toronto's rejuvenated distillery district mixes the old with the new in a tasteful way. One of the most striking contemporary twists to a historic building is the design of the Royal Ontario Museum. Browse the galleries with artifacts of Canada's Aboriginal peoples and depictions of the country's past. Then see artworks from across the globe and explore the nature exhibits. Overlooking Lake Ontario is modern Canada Square, a cultural hub in the heart of the award-winning Harbourfront Centre. Relax a while in the centre's pleasant marina, or visit a theatre or brew house. Sports fans can catch a game in Rogers Centre or visit the nearby Hockey Hall of Fame. First-timers are often surprised by the size of Toronto, which is North America's 4th largest city. Dundas Square, the downtown end of Yonge Street, is reminiscent of New York's Times Square. Find designer brands in the Eaton Centre, or shop in the city's huge underground mall called The Path. A different shopping experience altogether are the vintage clothes stores at the Kensington Market. This central neighborhood represents the funky anything-goes side of Toronto. When it's time for lunch, try Italian or Greek food, or a typical Hogtown treat. St. Lawrence Market in the heart of the Old Town is the best place to go for fresh produce. Families should check out the fun Ontario Science Centre, or visit Toronto's exciting entertainment parks. See the bears take a nap or take a splash in the Toronto Zoo, and meet Snoopy and his friends in Canada's Wonderland. Don't leave Ontario before taking a day trip to Niagara Falls. The largest of them all, the Horseshoe Falls, sits on the border with New York State. Each year, millions of people come to watch this spectacle, an experience you'll never forget. The falls are the perfect finale to your Toronto visit.
Montreal is located in the middle of the St. Lawrence River in southwest Quebec. It is Canada's second largest city and has the largest population of French speakers outside of Paris. Montreal is a Canadian city with a French soul, a big heart, and a very hip attitude. a city that enchants visitors with old world charm and an unpretentious love of good food and festivals. The first Europeans to arrive here were from France, and while the British later claimed ownership, an elegant sophistication lingers like a perfume. Order un café. Stroll the cobblestone streets of the old city and soak up the history and architecture of the area. Some of the buildings here date back to the 17th century, making it one of the oldest urban areas in North America. The Old City is also a place to discover Montreal's famous food scene. Visit one of the intimate bistros here and order poutine. The locals love it. Or follow your nose to one of the city's many wood-fired ovens and try a real Montreal bagel. Walk off the delicious food with a stroll around Place Jacques-Cartier, named after the intrepid explorer who claimed Canada for France. When Mark Twain visited Montreal in the 19th century, he nicknamed it the City of 100 Bell Towers. The city's churches are simply magnificent, especially the Christ Church Cathedral, the St. Joseph's Oratory, and the Notre Dame Basilica. But amidst all the history, Montreal is also thoroughly hip. The city hosts more than 100 festivals throughout the year, but even if you happen to be there between events, there is always something cool going on. Head to the Quartier Latin, popular for its artistic atmosphere, cafes and clubs. Or visit Le Village on St. Catherine Street East, which closes to cars in the summer, making it a great place to party. Another great area is Plateau Mont-Royal, where you will discover groovy boutiques, funky cafes, and colorful murals. For art of a different kind, head downtown to the Golden Square Mile and the Montreal Museum of Fine Art. Like Montreal itself, this museum combines the old and the new with great élan. Admire exquisite works from the great masters, as well as an impressive collection of local and international contemporary art. In Montreal, even Mother Nature is chic. Get outside and enjoy the city the way Montrealers do, with a hike up Mount Royal, the 764-foot green jewel that rises from the downtown area and gave the city its name. Or discover the Montreal Biodome, where 5 of the most beautiful ecosystems in America have been recreated in what was once the Olympic Velodrome. For more jewel-like color, visit the Montreal Insectarium, the largest insect museum in North America. Right next door is the Montreal Botanical Garden. Stroll amongst the tranquil ponds in the Japanese Zen Garden. Experience the principles of yin and yang in the Chinese Garden. And of course, you can't leave town without a trip to La Ronde, the city's beloved amusement park. Take a flume ride or brave one of the heart-stopping roller coasters with the names like the Vampire and the Cobra. As the sun sets on your adventures, head back downtown and discover Montreal after dark. Enjoy cool jazz, smoky blues, or wind down with something a little more quirky. European, Canadian, traditional, cutting edge. Montreal is all of these things, but it is also so much more. With its French past and funky present, Montreal is a city with a certain je ne sais quoi, a flavor and a feeling that is hard to define, but very easy to love.
Canada's capital is located in a valley along the Ottawa River in the province of Ontario, close to the American border. Ottawa is the country's fourth largest city and attracts more than 7 million visitors each year. Come to Ottawa to celebrate its quality of life, to explore its waterways, and to enjoy its many cultural attractions. This modern center for technology and science still has a deep appreciation for ceremony and history. Often thought of as a winter destination, this city comes to life during the warmer months, when locals enjoy the pop-up terraces on the waterfront and have outdoor meals in culinary districts such as Little Italy. Go for a walk or a bike ride to explore the downtown area and follow the pathways along the Rideau Canal. It cuts the city in two and gradually makes its way down to the Ottawa River. The 1827 Commissariat Building, now the Bytown Museum, is where Ottawa began. It was built as the depot for the British engineers who set out to construct the Ottawa locks, under the supervision of Colonel John By. Bytown became Ottawa in 1855 and was made the seat of government soon after. Come to Parliament Hill in summer to see the changing of the guard ceremony when the clock of the Peace Tower strikes 10. It's a spectacle not to be missed. Cross the locks to see the National Gallery of Canada. Its exterior reflects the sky and its inner courts embrace nature. The gallery's exhibits paint the story of Canada's past. Walk over to the nearby Notre Dame Basilica to take in its 19th century Gothic Revival facade and ornate interior. A few blocks away, the Byward Market is the place to go for lunch, with its good selection of mouth-watering treats. Don't worry, the advertised beaver tails are just a deep-fried pastry. Also, try some of the delicious fruit which comes straight from the farms in Quebec. The Canada Agriculture and Food Museum is the living proof that this green city loves fresh produce. Learn about growing your own food, meet the animals, and check out the machinery in this working farm in the heart of the city. The sky is the limit in the Canada Aviation and Space Museum, an airport hangar filled with vintage planes and modern spacecraft. Across the water in Quebec is the marvelous Canadian Museum of Civilization. Step back in time in this recreation of Canada's past to explore log cabins, shops, and vehicles from a bygone time. Not far from the museum is the start of the huge conservation area called Gatineau Park. After some close encounters in the visitor center, hike to picturesque lakes and enjoy a few hours on the beach. Before you leave the park, have lunch in the tea room of the Mackenzie King Estate, the historic summer retreat of Canada's longest-serving Prime Minister. As the second-largest country in the world, Canada has everything from snow-capped mountains to lush valleys and more wilderness than you can explore in a lifetime. And as the capital of all of this, Ottawa offers just a taste of what is to come.
Quebec, the capital of the Canadian province of the same name, has more than 500,000 residents. Being so close to the Arctic, it has long, cold winters and is a famous winter sports destination. But during the warmer months, the city bursts into action. Quebec City combines the couleur locale of Europe with the familiarity of North America. Its charming cobblestone streets with Parisian-style flair show a love for haute couture and the fine cuisine. While discovering Quebec's highlights, you'll be zigzagging between the walled upper town and the lower town. So jump on the funicular or take the l'escalier casse-cou, the breakneck stairs, which is less scary than it sounds. The Québécois will always remember their history and are fiercely proud of their French roots, just like it says in their motto. French is the official language. Croissants are still on the menu, and statues of French heroes dot the squares. The heritage-listed city center even has its own mini version of the Notre Dame. The Basilica stands at the site where it all began, Place Royale. Samuel de Champlain founded Quebec here in 1608. Step into the past and come face to face with some of Quebec's leading artists on your way to the oldest retail district in North America. It's as if these sugar shacks, food stalls, and horse-drawn carriages have always been there. Find another fresco just under the breakneck stairs. This one depicts the history of the waterfront neighborhood, Cap Blanc. These days, the old port is a great place to explore on a bicycle. Drop in at the popular Musée de la Civilisation and take a journey through the history of Quebec, from the First Nations to the modern culture. Continue your time travels and stroll past the fortifications and cannons on the panoramic Dauphren Terrace. You can't miss Chateau Frontenac, which towers over the broad St. Lawrence River. The river plays a major part in Quebec's story. It brought the first settlers, international trade, and the soldiers who fought over the Canadian territory. The Plains of Abraham in Battlefields Park is where Quebec was captured by the British in 1759. In the lead-up to the end of the French rule in Canada. Nowadays, it's a peaceful city park where you can explore old defense towers, fly a kite, and admire modern art. Pose in front of the Fontaine de Tourny and look up at the Parliament building, home to Quebec's National Assembly. Step through the gates of the nearby British fortress, La Citadelle, to watch the traditional changing of the guard ceremony in summer. Shop in North America's oldest grocery store to stock up on provisions, and head out of the Old Town to experience some of Quebec's family attractions. To the south, the aquarium introduces visitors to the marine mammals that inhabit the ice-cold waters of the Arctic. Kids can line up to get a kiss, and they may get an unexpected round of applause. To the north are the Montmorency Falls. Glide past, stand suspended in mid-air, or climb up to the observation platform to witness the spectacle up close. Afterwards, cross the river to Ile d'Orléans to watch the sun set over the mountains. Quebec City transforms at dusk, the perfect time to explore Rue Saint-Paul's delightful sidewalk restaurants. And your night on the Champs-Élysées of Quebec, the Grande Allée. A Canadian city with a 400-year-old history and a French elegance. Quebec is truly unique. A destination to always remember. Je me souviens.
Vancouver is British Columbia's biggest city. It's the gateway to the glaciers of Alaska, the wilderness of Western Canada, and the slopes of Whistler. And it's also one of the world's most desirable places to live. Wherever you roam in Vancouver, the salty sea breeze carries the fresh scents of the forest and the promise of adventure. Its welcoming neighborhoods are filled with the aromas of incredible cuisines, roasting coffee beans, brewers' hops, and all the urban delights you'd expect from a city which is regularly voted the world's most livable. The secret to Vancouver's success is that it has always been developed with livability in mind. Ever since European settlement only 150 years ago, the people of Vancouver have protected the rivers, coastline, and forest, maintaining the perfect balance between nature and the built environment. And there's no finer example than the city's pride and joy, Stanley Park, which dates all the way back to 1886. Because Stanley Park spans more than 1,000 acres, you can return over and over again and always discover something new. To get to the park, simply cycle or walk along the century-old seawall from the nearby downtown area. The wall not only keeps the sea at bay, but ensures Vancouver's waterfront is accessible to everyone. Water has always played a major role in this port and river city. Watch ships come and go from Brockton Point, where a lighthouse marks the easternmost tip of Stanley Park, or from the viewing platform at Prospect Point on the park's northern tip. The coastal First Nations people are seafarers too, having paddled to these misty shores over 17,000 years ago. In the Museum of Anthropology at the University of British Columbia, totems and sculptures depict the rich mythologies of the Haida people and the other indigenous tribes of the Northwest Coast. The modern city takes its name from the British navigator George Vancouver, who landed here in 1792. The original settlement, however, was called Gastown. In 1867, Gassy Jack, a sailor and renowned storyteller, convinced local timber cutters to build him a saloon in exchange for all the whiskey they could drink in one sitting. No one knows who got the best end of the deal, but a tavern was quickly erected, and a town was born. Gassy Jack and his makeshift pub may be long gone, but in the historic neighborhood of Gastown, his spirit lingers on, in the good company, the hearty food, and in the vapors that rise from the city's iconic steam clock. Vancouver's early history continues at nearby Waterfront Station, the western terminus of the Canadian Pacific Railway. The railway's construction brought Chinese workers by the thousands, whose descendants have enriched Vancouver ever since. Experience this interweaving of cultures at the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Park and Classical Chinese Garden, the first garden of its kind created outside of China. And in Vancouver's Chinatown, where the fusing of Oriental flavors with fresh local seafood has helped earn the city the title, the culinary capital of Canada. Back in downtown, admire yet another of the city's iconic landmarks, the Fairmont Hotel Vancouver. Opening in 1939, this castle in the city became a reflection of the city's growing prestige and confidence. Just a short stroll away is Canada Place, where cruise ship travelers from all over the globe arrive to explore the city or embark on epic voyages to Alaska. If you're visiting Vancouver with younger adventurers, they'll find plenty to discover at Science World. And at the Vancouver Aquarium, little Jacques Cousteaus can meet the cold-water creatures of the British Columbia coast, or simply watch in awe as tropical species glide on by. After visiting Vancouver's central highlights, explore the city's south side. Ride the ferry or aqua bus across False Creek to Granville Island. Stock up on provisions and delicious treats at the famous Granville Island Public Market. Then sample a few craft ales at Granville Island Brewing. From Granville Island, head south to Queen Elizabeth Park on Little Mountain, the city's highest peak. Once scarred by quarries, the city transformed these former gravel pits into a stunning network of gardens, creating a peaceful oasis high above the city. After you've breathed breathed in the views, check out the Bloedel Conservatory, a lush greenhouse filled with some of Vancouver's most colorful residents. When it's time to answer the call of the wild, cross the Lions Gate Bridge, named after the nearby Twin Peaks which loom over the city. The North Shore mountain range is dissected by 3 deep valleys. It's a wilderness where bears roam and salmon-filled rivers flow through old-growth forests. Cross the 450-foot-long Capilano Suspension Bridge, which has been testing the nerves of visitors for over 125 years. Then take a treetops adventure high above the rainforest floor. For a bird's-eye view of Vancouver, head to the top of Grouse Mountain. Or, to go even higher, climb into the viewing pod of the Eye of the Wind, the mountain's landmark wind turbine. Vancouver offers extraordinary outdoor experiences and mind-blowing vistas, all within its city limits. But venture a little further, and you'll arrive at a whole other level of awesomeness. Less than a 2-hour drive from the city is the world-renowned mountain village of Whistler. This adventure playground is simply magic all year round. But when the season's first snows come whirling down, it transforms into a wonderland. Hit the slopes of the Whistler Blackcomb Resort, the largest ski resort in North America. The beautifully connected runs here cater to all skill levels and attract elite skiers and beginners from all over the globe. And while you could drive back to Vancouver the same day, why not put the world on hold for a few nights, warm yourself by a fire, and enjoy some of Canada's finest hospitality? Vancouver is, and always has been, a city connected with nature and adventure. It beckons from the breeze, the waters, the mountains, her very street corners. So whether your idea of living is testing yourself in the wilds or adventures of a more urban kind, you'll feel perfectly at home and alive in Vancouver.
The Niagara Falls are located on the border of Ontario Province, Canada, and New York State, USA. The water flows from the Great Lakes, the world's largest surface freshwater system, all the way down to the Atlantic Ocean. See one of the world's most awe-inspiring displays of the power of nature from the sky, from the foaming river below, or even from within arm's reach. The Niagara River connects Lake Erie with Lake Ontario, but before it gets there, the water plunges down almost 170 feet in a straight drop. The volume of water that comes tumbling over the crest is overwhelming. Almost 170,000 cubic meters of water, that's 6 million cubic feet, thunders over these combined falls each minute during the fall's peak hours. Most people don't realize this until they get there, but there are actually 3 waterfalls. East are the American Falls and the narrow Bridal Veil Falls. Then you've got Goat Island. And to the west is the impressive Canadian Horseshoe Falls, the widest and most powerful of them all. Glide over the river or explore the many other vantage points to see the water plummet into the depths below. The resulting plume of mist is visible from miles away. To feel its spray, board the Maid of the Mist. The first wooden steamboat took people to the falls as early as the mid-1800s, and while the maids are now made out of steel, the excitement during this half-hour cruise has changed little since. If you want to get as close to the curtain of water as you can, embark on a journey behind the falls and see and hear the water rush past right in front of you. Below the falls, the foaming water mass squeezes its way through a narrow gorge, creating the Whirlpool Rapids, which you can get to aboard a jet raft. Aside from nature, there is also plenty of family entertainment to be had under neon lights. Take the kids to visit the Niagara Skywheel and nearby themed attractions and arcades. Cross the Rainbow Bridge to the American side to see the Aquarium of Niagara in a serene environment, or stay on the Canadian side and enjoy the Niagara Park's Botanical Gardens. Niagara-on-the-Lake is only a short drive away. Visit this pretty 19th century village to browse boutique shops, play golf, or have lunch before you set out to explore Ontario's wine country. A shuttle bus or taxi can drop you back at the falls in no time. Scale the Skylon Tower to admire this glorious landscape once more. Less than a 2-hour drive from Toronto and only a taxi ride away from Buffalo Airport, getting to Niagara is easy. Their accessibility and splendor make the Niagara Falls one of the most photographed natural spectacles in the world. But of course, no picture can capture the thrill you feel and the roar you hear when you witness Niagara's astonishing power. An impression that will last a lifetime.